All right, all right. We're going live. All right, all right. Greetings, everyone. We're going live. This meeting is being live streamed. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. I know it's been a minute. Let me see if I can close out this other window. All right. So close this out. There's like a delay. All right. Greetings, everyone. On live. This meeting is being live streamed. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. I know it's been a minute. Let me see if I can close out this other window. Okay, we still got this up. And this is like a delay. All right. Greetings, everyone. This meeting is being live streamed. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. I know it's been a minute. I'm getting feedback. Let's see if I can mute. I gotta mute this other screen out. All right. Welcome. Greetings. Hold on, I'll be back. But first, as usual, before we get started, the topic of this video is going to be hidden adhesion contracts. This is going to be an advanced master class, something I've been meaning to discuss for a while. So I'm going to give a disclaimer. This video is going to be for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person. So please do his or her own homework and research regarding the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In any event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource channel is not liable or responsible for anyone's misuse of the information being presented. These are simply my opinions on the topic. All rights are reserved. Please keep in mind, everyone is responsible for their own commercial affairs. With that being said, once again, let's get into this hidden adhesion contracts to dismantle. By the way, I'm going to attempt to share my screen, by the way. Okay, where are we going to start? So bear with me here. I'm going to grab something, but you guys can take a look. I'm going to scroll this window up. See if we can scroll up. X this out. I'm in a PDF file. Let me see if I can move my screen over. Okay, there we go. Benefits accepted is the name of this article. I'm not going to read everything, but I'm going to be back. Hold on a second. All right. Some may say, I do apologize for coming before you all very late. I've been working on this project for a while. In my current place, it seems the sound travels. It's like really, the walls seem to be really thin. And that's kind of a problem with me. When I do these videos, I want to be able to focus in without outside attention. It's funny, it doesn't bother me, but whenever I'm doing videos or like studying, similar to college, I don't really like to have outside distractions. If you do hear a little noise, that is the heater in here. It cuts on and off every now and then, by the way. But to get into things, I'm going to get right to the meat and potatoes now. The topic of this video is something regarding the lines of dismantling hidden adhesion contracts. This is going to be an advanced master class. I'm sharing my screen, so you guys should be able to see what I'm actually reading. I'm going to see if there's a better area that can kind of fit. Okay, that's about right. I'm looking for a particular section. Okay, there we go. I jumped down a little bit. Okay, I want to talk about, these are all hidden adhesion contracts. There's many more. It says the following is a partial list of mostly entrapments that bind us to the contracts I've mentioned. By the way, this is going to tie into other things that people who study what's known as redemption education. I refer to this information redemption, part of the redemption movement, but this is redemption education. There's a lot of people, this type of knowledge, this type of information, I've gone over this in the past. It's unconventional. It is not common knowledge. By the way, this type of information I learned by invitation only by many years ago through these private meetings in the city of Detroit that I used to attend at my own will, by the way, when I was young. And it woke me up to a lot of things. I made major sacrifices for later in life to learn this information because I felt this was very, very important. But as I started to learn more of this information, I also did confirm from a legitimate private source that this type of information does indeed go all the way high up to the ruling class elite, by the way. And I probably maybe touch on that later. So this is why I titled this. This is truly an advanced master course. For some, this is a shortcut. If you're wondering, people who've asked questions about the do not detain list, is it real? Some things I'm going to be maybe vague about. I would have to still maybe hold back because YouTube is still a public platform, by the way. But we know nowadays there are people who put a lot of information out there. There's an army of people that are teaching this type of information. I want to say is not just myself, and I have to watch. Even the words that we use are statutory terms. So this is someone had stated to me in terms of this is more like a meeting, by the way, but class can be construed as a jurisdictional term, by the way. But let me say, when you have your stuff straight, when you're not attached to these adhesion contracts, what I'm about to go over, this will protect you from many entrapments and will also help you get to higher levels. But in the meantime, if you've done things like what I've been discussing lately, I'm going to take a little bit of a break from. I might piggyback to in a video or two down the road dealing with the 1099A process, 1099 OIDs. If you haven't done some of the advanced teachings that are still sort of new, dealing with the estate or the 98 number, these type of things will help protect you. By the way, if you're still haven't gotten completely out of the public sector, doing business as the legal person, legal fiction, and the court system is referred to as the en lingus. And you will be tried at times. You will be tested. By the way, I received something in the mail recently. It's going to be sent back a particular type of way. And I had someone inside that I knew that worked for this postal station that's in my same jurisdiction where I dwell at, by the way, and the particular small territory that I'm within, stated to me, gave me confirmation how you would send something back a particular way, because many people don't know. Every day we get involved in many different types of contracts. People do not question. From the time you're a young person and you say you want to drive one day, which proper term should be travel. I might be mixing words back and forth, so you have to read between the lines in a sense, but I am aware of those words of art that can also be used to entrap you. And I'm not, because I'm not as proficient in that full regard yet, I won't go into, because it's like a lot of how can I put it, the proper term, there's going to be precarious situations that people find themselves in. But when you dismantle these adhesion contracts, trust me, they will protect you. I've had experience in the past. This is something that I've saw that has worked for me. This is something that have helped protect me. I'm even seeing how down the road up until now recently, how there's a particular entity that's even trying to pull me back into jurisdiction, even dealing with how I conduct business, because I'm not completely out. But however, I have done things to protect myself as I try to transition. As me and a friend that I've known for quite a while, we discussed privately, we are on treacherous waters, by the way. when you're trying to navigate. This is like when you're dealing with this type of information, when people come into the full understanding of this, by the way, you'll understand down the road is that this is similar to, like, example, the Florida Everglades. Now, you know, the Florida Everglades, it's like a swampy area that can involve alligators. If you slip off the boat, you are down there, you get in a car accident, you're stranded, you got to worry about alligators, snakes, Burmese pythons, and things of that sort. Well, within the system, the contracts that people get engaged in, there's lawyers that are members of the Bar Association, which is an acronym for, I believe, British Accredited Regency or British Accredited Registry, something to that effect. That's what BAR stands for. Lawyers and paralegals have what's called a P number. They are a form and sense of dual citizens, by the way. Yes, that P number is a license, similar to how people get a concealed carry license or like a regular driver's license. Those are adhesion contracts. Let me say this again. Those are adhesion contracts. If you're able to look at, because this is why I wanted to do a screen capture so you guys can see, I'm going to narrate as I read. I'm not going to probably have time to go over all the information because, you know, I'm at the work slavery plantation, which I shouldn't be on. And that is a form of adhesion contracts as well. And there's certain things that I am attempting to do down the road, by the way, to better protect myself as well. Always keep that in mind. If you're still working a job just over broke, those are forms of adhesion contracts. There are higher levels in this information if you work as independent contractors, some call gig work. You know, so there's this information can get intricate. And I try to be as thorough as possible. But going through this list, it mentions the use of Federal Reserve notes that we carry in our pockets every day. By the way, I was just discussing with a friend the other day, if the system wanted to, just for having these, there's a way they can entrap you in certain types of adhesion contracts. With people even call, you know, these notes money. By the way, let me say, legally, people don't understand. It sounds like an oxymoron. It sounds silly to some people. They don't understand that this is a form of currency bartering system, but this is not legally. This is not money, by the way. In a way, in a sense, it is people that are used to those terms, but, you know, $20 bills, you know, we're used to calling money. These are Federal Reserve notes. This note, it states at the top, is also legal tender. Here's an older one. This is legal tender for public and private debts. It tells you right on a note, what is the difference between public and private? It says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. See, let's pull out a clear version. Let's see, hold it up to the camera. This note is legal tender for public and private debts. And these notes also tell you which Federal Reserve bank they're issued out of. You know, there's like 12 banks that have jurisdictions. There's like a map throughout the country. But the important thing is it states at top that this is a Federal Reserve note. Legally, I explained to a friend of mine who's been on the fence about this information, who he understands that it's real, overstands. And I harp on this, that this is what a legal system is designed in a way when people get involved in these contracts to ensnare you, to entrap you. And lawyers, the reason I brought them up, me and a friend of mine were discussing, someone I've known for quite a while, mentions how you're open prey. If you get involved in certain situations, by the way, a car accident, something that can involve a potential suit, they're going after your legal person, your legal fiction. This is why I also titled this an advanced master course, by the way, because when you get into, let's say, if you've already filed certain paperwork, you've already done certain things in this movement, and you're wondering why you didn't get the 4 or 5 star passport and you still got the 3-star, which means you're still doing business as a U.S. citizen, U.S. person, by the way, is because you still have contracts that are still lingering in their jurisdiction you have not gotten rid of. One of the most important contracts, and you know I'm about to go there, you guys hear me harp on it quite a bit, and I always mention, and it's actually one of the best advice that I received many years ago when I woke up to this information, by the way, I tell the story back in 2004. The sister said she used formerly, a friend of mine reminded me that she stated at these meetings he attended that she used to be a former Detroit police officer. And she said they used to teach them years ago how to deal with so-called sovereign citizens. By the way, you know, that's an umbrella term. I generally don't refer to that. I can say I'm sovereign, but not a citizen. A citizen is a subject, a slave. You see, those are two separate words, kind of like how they play with conspiracy theory. There's two separate words there. You have the definition of conspiracy, which means deals with conspire, and theory means something that's theoretical, something that's unproven, has not been proven yet. I deal with facts and evidence, genuine evidence as to material fact. So for the most part, by the way, like I'm showing you what I'm reading from, by the way, and you won't find a lot of information that pertains to this particular topic online, by the way, with this type of information. There's a team of people that I know behind the scenes. This information has been kept hidden. Like I said, it goes all the way up to the ruling class elite, by the way. But one of the main things, not to get off track, I was going to mention one of the contracts that's very important. A lot of people are still registered voters, sadly, and I find out due this information. If you're messing with 1099A, you're trying to discharge that, get rid of that voter registration and all jurisdictions, previous states that you've lived in, previous counties, and every state is uniform. According to California Election Code Section 22, states as the registration of a voter is permanent for all purposes during his or her life. Let me state that again. This is what Paula stated years ago, back in 2004, when I woke up to this information for the first time and I looked up this law. She stated California Election Code Section 22 is permanent. The registration is permanent until canceled, or actually the proper term should be terminated. But you know, the system jurisdictionally, they still use cancel, by the way. But eventually it's going to fall out the system. Just like there's a story, a guy that's friends with the guy that I know, when he was in prison for at least 5 years or more, his driver's license fell out the system. But it'll eventually come out when he got back out a couple years ago. I don't remember exactly. By the way, they said they couldn't even find his driver's license in the system. By the way, his friend at the time recommended that if you don't have like a job where you're required to use a CDL, I understand different people have different situations. That's why I put in my disclaimer. Everyone's individual circumstances, situation is different. Now, there are still ways to protect you, by the way, but that I would say that for private consultation. If you want to know things like that, if you have to get in touch with me privately, and there are ways to do that, and I can go into details how you would go about protecting yourself. If you, let's say, if you're a bus driver, there's certain contracts, even though they can pay more money than a lot of jobs, but when you understand down the road, what some of these adhesion contracts are not good, and some of them are super contracts, by the way. So I was going through the list: the use of Federal Reserve notes, private insurance programs, Social Security, marriage license, bank accounts. Yes, more so specifically, because this is an advanced class I put in the description, I'm going to give you guys this jewel. I'll say certain types of bank accounts, and it's also how you operate, showing limited contact. But you don't want to mess with interest-bearing accounts, whether savings or checking. You want more so non-interest bearing, because interest bearing creates a taxable liability. This is why I proved how these entities that those who have used the 1099 process, for example, and I said that these utility companies and different corporations are refusing even to give you their tax ID number. That's where you send a W-9 to them. That's supposed to be public record, public information, especially courthouses, friend of the court, like here in Michigan. They hide that number. Michigan Disbursement Agency, which is a division of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So if you can find the tax ID number, because that will go on the form to file to do certain types of discharges, set-offs, means to extinguish, to zero out your alleged debt that's owed. Because remember, they're coming after the mainly the legal fiction, the name. It's the reason your name is in all caps. By the way, there's another document that I have I need to tie in. I should have titled, I may retitle this. This is going to be part 1, by the way. I meant to put part 1 in this video because this is very, very, very important. And I may forget some things, guys, so just bear with me. I have a separate window because I'm using Zoom. So if any of you all have joined, I'm not sure yet because I can't see that window like I normally do my lives because I'm using this software that allows me to share my screen. So I can narrate and I can show you guys in real time what I've studied, what I've learned, and you guys can go through, you get it. So to scroll down, I went over marriage license, bank accounts. I just went over that, helped remind me you don't want interest bearing interest checking or savings accounts. But many years ago, Bank of America, for example, to tie in with the story that I'm explaining, they sent me a 1099 INT form. Now I heard before it becomes you're required to file taxes, allegedly you have to make $10, at least $10 or more in interest. Now the savings, many savings and checking accounts don't pay interest nowhere near what they used to. It's like diddly squat. It's really practically nothing anymore. Now there are a few entities out there, but you have to have some of them require you to have like so many thousands of dollars because the banks are in business. They want to be able to, make money off you. But what they're doing on the private side, it's not even exchange, no robbery. They're double dipping and triple dipping, and they're making goo gobs of money. And it's evil how the elite set this up. They make it where even for being a registered voter, that helps you don't get a cut of that money that privately they're pulling off your Chris account that deals with the court registry investment system that's connected to the Federal Reserve. And I have an article, someone did a video years ago, and YouTube, Google, which is owned by Google, Alphabet, their parent company, purged a lot of these videos and information. This is to prove how they don't want, appears to be an agenda. They don't want, I won't even say average members of the general public. There's still so many people brainwashed that won't even accept or receive this information. That's why I personally make an argument. When I attended that event some years ago, those elites or people behind the curtain should have allowed us to access our funding. By the way, it was so devious what they did to us. People don't understand. If you were in my shoes, you would understand my pain, my frustration. By the way, but we still move on. I'm not dwelling on the past, but just using this as an example. They're violating their own code of ethics. That they're at one time, by the way, many people forget those discharges used to go through by the individual's own admission some years ago. You guys know of a private event that I attended. I won't say the name of, many years ago. By the way, this is proof. Not something I'm making up, but hey, it's up to every person to make their own assessment. But out of their own words, I just can't remember if it was on one of the audios or if he said this at one of the seminars I attended. I didn't attend every seminar, but these were private events by invitation only. I was invited by a relative of mine, or else I would have never attended. To be honest with you guys, if it wasn't for my cousin at the time, I wouldn't have never attended, just to be straight up. However, I learned, it opened my eyes up much, much greater. But I just didn't, I won't harp on this, but just the way things played out, I feel betrayed, double-crossed. We were lied to multiple times. They just didn't fulfill what was promised. And that was even with the original NDA that was signed. I followed all the rules, so, it is for what it is. But however, the information, I do have supporting documentation still kept in my possession. I'm still willing to show as proof, evidence for those out there who had questions or whatnot. But to finish dealing with these adhesion contracts, I went over bank accounts, engaging in interstate commerce, vehicle registration, utilizing commercial notes, voter registration. I just went over that. Use of credit, birth certificate, involvement in the Uniform Commercial Code, driver's license, and citizenship, by the way. And this further goes on to explain I'm going to go down, and I think this video does mention, because some people say, what are adhesion contracts? These are also can be called invisible contracts. By the way, this can also be referred to as invisible contracts, not only adhesion contracts, meaning there's an attachment, like you have an adhesive, you attach something to them, and they're hidden. That's why I believe I put that in the title. Many cases, it says adhesion contract, a distinctive feature of adhesion contract is that the weaker party has no realistic choice as to its terms. Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition. That's what this states right here. I'll read this other definition right above it. It states that, I'll just go to the point. It says, adhesion contract is an invisible contract and creates jurisdiction over the person in certain matters and over subject matter, depending upon what the license was issued for. And that is key. That's why I said some of these contracts are super contracts, by the way. You'll understand that as you become more advanced. And you also, these are used to force you to waive your right voluntarily. And also, remember with certain contracts, and they tell you when you sign up for certain things, and they tell you to read the fine print. Or what are those disclaimers, like for different companies? If you sign up for credit cards, you know how they'll have a lot of times people, you just check the box because you don't feel like reading it. But it's important to read those. Those are forms of contracts. Those are examples. And what I'm alluding to is that many of those contracts, they have to give you the ability to opt in or opt out, by the way, of those adhesion contracts. This is proof, by the way, and they're using forms of trickery and deception. These contracts create certain juristic legal consequences, by the way, and can become binding if you're unknowingly operating a certain way, and it makes you a party to it, like you're a legal person. What's happening is that's the surety, your all caps name, some refer to as the straw man. They're using deception to trick you into signing as the surety on behalf of the legal person. You see, those are two distinct entities. You are a living man, living flesh or blood woman. It's supposed to be listed as a certain way that is distinctly different legally from the legal fiction, a legal person. And in the legal term, legalese, that's the definition. Look up the definition of legalese. That means it's been used to replace plain English. This is in the court system. That's why the court system, it's a form of, a lot of times your due process is being violated because you're not aware, you're not given notice, and they're even supposed to explain these things to you. But when you don't know the right words to say, you don't know how to invoke or ask the judge in the proper manner, or to even be your fiduciary, a lot of times they're acting against you. They're working against you. They're not working on your behalf. That's why no matter what side you're on, I told you guys a while ago, read Lawyers and Judges Secret Oath. If you can still find that document, it was called Judges and Lawyers Secret Oath. It's from years ago. It used to be online easily. It may be Scribs, that site that makes you pay. You might be able to find it on there. I don't know if there's any other sites, but it used to be a long document. I printed it out some years ago, by the way, but it explains about like what bar association is and how lawyers are esquires for the queen. Like on a chessboard, the knights represent lawyers, by the way. That's why the knights, if you know how to use them a certain way, they can help protect your queen. They make an L move, but they have a powerful position. But a lot of people who become lawyers, forms of gatekeepers within the public sector, are issued a P number. P number gives them, in a sense, a form of a dual citizenship. And you may say, how is that so, Dorsey? Well, when you hire a lawyer, did you know that you're declaring yourself incompetent? By the way, yes. When you're hiring them as a third party. Why weren't we learning the law when we were in elementary school, middle school, or high school? Why weren't we learning civics? So years later, they can set us up to be tricked in commerce, to be dumbed down citizens in their statutory side. You see, so they would have an advantage. So the minions, the gatekeep, the ruling class that control them, because they're beneath them, the establishment, the potentates, the diplomats, things that control the legal judicial system, could exercise their will, their authority over the commoners, the serfs, the general population. You see, why is that? You see, so that's why many of the elites, remember Pastor Lindsey Williams' DVD, Secrets of the Elites? I was informed by a private source, told me some years ago, when I asked him specifically, I asked certain questions. And he said, yeah, they were taught by their parents. Many of them were sent to private schools by invitation only. Remember, there's a certain individual I mentioned that his children, his kids went to a school that said they weren't required to utilize the Common Core curriculum. They were being taught differently than the other children. It's not a coincidence. You see, many of the elites' children too are also initiated to go into a field or career path. More so, a lot of them become so-called philanthropists to carry out their parents' agenda. By the way, that's not a coincidence. And why many of them push eugenics, like, for example, trying to remember, from what I understand, Bill Gates' father was a member of Planned Parenthood. It's not a coincidence why his so-called foundation, under the disguise of philanthropy, donates a lot to, what is it called? It's at the tip of my tongue. That group that deals with like female reproductive situations, Planned Parenthood. It's not a coincidence that these foundations donate significant portions and they support the abortion agenda. I'm not trying to get political, but just saying, when you pay attention, Bill Gates' father, people think, a lady told me this years ago that she felt he came from rags to riches. No, many of these people, they inherited their wealth. Like Mark Zuckerberg didn't just create Facebook from rags to riches. The pedigree, in order to go to Yale University, a friend of mine that's more advanced when it comes to the history that I consult for the accuracy of the information I'm going over. I have a team of people behind the scenes that are more advanced than me when it comes to history, and they set the record straight. In any debate, if we were to handle a debate, many liberals, including some of my own relatives, they wouldn't make it. My friends, my team, we would shut them down, especially my friends that I know we could pick them apart. We could deconstruct them. And we have evidence. We have documents. Alex Jones, by the way, with InfoWars, what I love about his platform, he shows the documents, the websites, the video evidence. He has a team of staff that has good, editing, video production skills, where he'll show the evidence of what he's going over, not the videos I'm talking about where he rants. When I watch, he puts out a lot of content. So whenever I'm able to catch, just using this as an example, there's many others. I'm just using him. It's not just him. I pay attention to everybody's information. This is why I cross-reference with MSNBC, CNN, for example. And I can see with the mainstream media, what they're covering up, like what's going on with Ukraine and Russia. I'm not on neither side. Of course, I'm a black man. I don't have no type of connection at all whatsoever, but I've given my opinion. What they don't like, the globalists are mad about Russia and China is they've been doing business with each other for years. The globalists, the ruling class, they're mad that China is no longer buying America's bonds. Both China and Russia have been accumulating gold, precious metals behind the scenes, gold and silver, just like JP Morgan Chase has behind the scenes. But you didn't hear that from me. Just saying, by the way. But mainstream media won't tell you because they want you to pick a side. They want you to be on a particular side, you see. But all this ties in. You see, I'm not getting off track, but giving you guys an idea when it comes to these adhesion contracts, because I have to get these things tie in politically. You know, even though I'm not a registered voter, I'm glad I will never, ever join any of that, those public statutory things again. And it's very important. It's one of the things that's protected me all these years, helped. There's other things I have to do because another thing that's important it's important to dismantle as many of these adhesion contracts as possible, because these gatekeepers have changed things. They're like a friend of mine mentioned, you're open prey. Reason I brought up lawyers in particular, they're worse than police officers in some instances. You're open prey, meaning, let's say, for example, you get in a car accident and it was your fault. And that automobile, and these are jurisdictional terms I'm aware too, because they use words of art. I was informed. Car is cargo. That's under Admiralty Maritime law. Vehicle deals with vessel. Vessel is in Title 9 of the United States codes. In the court system, they consider you a ship. That's what res is. I was helping a sister some years ago where her son got caught up on a gun charge, and she told the judge, she said, I had power of attorney over my son. And the judge told her ship failed. He said ship failed. That meant he was referring to his ship was the res, the vessel. Vessel's in Title 9 of the United States codes. Woo! You see, they're using encryptions on you. You see, and I'm not an expert. I'm not as advanced as Yusuf is. Well, he breaks down, just using Yusuf as an example. And I still, whenever I'm able to catch his material, I study a lot of different people's work. And I appreciate those out there who really been have been helping people that are really advanced, like Jonah Bay, believe it or not. Despite we might not all agree on certain things, there's different processes, there's different procedures, but I have to give it to these brothers. They put in their work. I have to give credit where credit is due. They're advanced. Akeem L, by the way, got to throw his name out there. General Hellraiser, who I would forget quite a bit of time. Big shout out to General Hellraiser, by the way. I think Malachi is his other name, Trey Capital, aka big shout out to the brother King Stevion, by the way. Low key, I've been checking out his videos lately. That's an advanced process. Big shout out to the work he's putting in. By the way, he didn't ask, none of these people asked for it, but I'm just giving a shout out, giving credit where credit is due. Like, I have to bow down because they are advanced. But I wanted to give you guys a jewel. And I've discussed this in some of my private consultations so far, because I see people maybe putting themselves in harm's way. If you haven't done some of those advanced processes yet, this is some of the things that I can confirm will help protect you. There was even a video, and I do apologize, I have to catch up with, I'm behind with some of my consultations. There's some people out there I have to reach back to. I didn't get a chance to respond to the emails. If you're watching and you're one of those people, shoot me an email in the description box. Like, there's the brother, I think down in Virginia. I won't say his name to protect his identity, but I haven't forgot about you. I didn't even add the thing with PayPal. I've just been so busy. I've been meaning to shoot him an email back, because I don't do data processing. Like, I don't process paperwork. I just give the people what they want. They asked me years ago, how can I get in contact with you, Dorsey? So I set up a way, and that should be in the description box. If it's not immediately after this video uploads, give me some time. You can check my previous videos, by the way, and I will respond to you. Like I said, if I don't respond to you in a timely manner, just shoot me another email. But I do appreciate the feedback. I've been busy lately because, a lot of people have been asking me or requesting information about that particular process dealing with the 1099, etc. But if you're utilizing those things, you want to make sure you're not a registered voter. You want to get rid of the driver's license. There's ways to travel without that, or there's ways to, if you still have it, there's ways to protect yourself. You also don't want to be an organ donor. Those are the two main contracts they ask you. I can't speak for other states. Uniformly, it should be the same. Like with the voter registration, that's why generally, in many cases, it's attached to the Department of Motor Vehicles. You see, because you're making yourself, you're putting yourself in their jurisdiction as a statutory citizen. By the way, I watched the video today, and because I had got something in the mail, I'll tell you guys, but I'll go ahead and reveal it to you for alleged jury duty. Now, I hadn't gotten one of these. I got one some years ago, but it was something that I did, by the way. And it's something they have to honor by law. I actually know the laws, and they say there's no way to get out of it to honor your civic duty. And then I went on YouTube, I saw this video where they said former President Obama had showed up for jury duty, and Trump and former President Bush. Now, sometimes these people, they all showed up, they were saying showed up for jury duty. They virtue signal sometimes. And I think they said Obama, he wasn't chosen, Trump wasn't chosen when they both showed up. But I think in some instances, people can have a lot of money and not know about this information. When I attended that private event some years ago, the head administrator, it was a private event where I was being taught, we were taught by the elites. The other main person mentioned there was other elites at the time in the room with us, by the way. They were watching, monitoring what was going on. That was admitted by their main front person. And he said that they had to go tell Obama about the DTC. He said that Obama didn't know. So I was like, found it interesting that even though these people have a lot of money, this information is only amongst certain super elites. There's a difference between being wealthy and being rich. That's why there's people who are rich and they're public. They don't know about. That's why I think there's people with a lot of money that have come to me privately or paying more attention. They're already, I would say, rich or pretty well off compared to the average person, but they're not wealthy, or they don't have generational wealth. But there's specific people that are in the private, my friend calls them shadow people, that know about this information. But there's people who are rich or who are even famous that they may know a little bit, but they don't fully understand, or they don't even know about this information at all. That's what some people don't understand. Don't just assume that everybody, even if they're a former president, that they even know about this information, because there's a pecking order. There's a caste system. You see, even that goes all the way up to the ruling class elite, to the ones that have that can pay for private underground bunkers. Those are real. You can go on YouTube. There's that talk show host I mentioned earlier. He even did a video where I saw he showed kind of a diagram in one of his videos. He's kind of discussed that he's people he knows and how he's gotten intel about certain things. This stuff is real. But without further ado, I know I like to give you guys a better understanding of these adhesion contracts and why you should be dismantling them. I forgot this word, dismantle. I had a recent consultation, but they were very overjoyed with the consultation and said I gave them more information and I went well over the time. By the way, they were very appreciative. But one of the words didn't dawn on me is dismantle. You want to dismantle certain adhesion contracts. And this is what can be preventing you from getting the 4 or 5 star passport. 4 stars means you have some contracts that are still lingering in the system that are tying you into being, you're not completely out, but it is an advantage to the 4 star. I have a confirmation from a private source that I know. I won't tell his story. He shared with me privately. I told it to another lady who's more advanced than I am. She invited me to a private group I have to catch back up with. By the way, I think she told me she recorded that call, by the way. We were on, I came back one night and she signed me up or helped. I appreciate her. Signed me up for Microsoft Teams, which I had never heard of before. Walked me through that process. And she said it helped answer some of the dots she was missing, even though she was more advanced, like in areas I'm not as strong in. And she said I blew her away. She, it was, phenomenal. So I appreciate the feedback, guys, and I'll go over stuff like that. I'll fully open up. I won't hold back when I do private consultations, and I generally try to cater those private consultations to one's specific needs based on your questions or specific circumstances. So I'm scrolling down. I'm looking for a certain section. I'm looking for either marriage license or voter registration. Like I said, there's going to have to be a part 2 and 3 to a video. This may even have to be a part 4 or 5. And I have to check. I'm going to check the comment section. I don't know how many. Okay, I just passed marriage contract, marriage license. I think there was an order that this was in I wanted to touch on. I'm going to jump real quick to the oh, I was looking for the other window. I opened up. Okay, now I'm gonna close this out. I opened up Mozilla Firefox. I'm trying to open up because when you're using Zoom software, it gives you there's like another window. Yep, this is the other article I had pulled up. How to rescind or revoke unjust adhesion contracts. Notice they put unjust in there. That was the person that wrote the article that could back up what I'm saying. So I'm still looking for that. Okay, there we go. There we go. There's my other screen. I had to mute it out because there's like an echo, will be feedback. So when you guys see it, when I respond, there's a short delay, by the way, just so you guys know. So I give a shout out to Money Boy in the building, says, what's good with everyone? Peace, family. What's going on, Money Boy? I saw you earlier. I was on Midwest Live. Midwest does an excellent job. Big shout out to you guys. Been going strong since the TDA movement of 2017. Big shout out to you, Midwest. Chi Vegas says, peace, Dorsey. Appreciate you, Chi. She says, everything is a contract. Basically, we just have to dig deeper to dismantle it. Yes. True, facts. She says, have you heard anything about opening a free account with Fidelity using your birth certificate number to find your QSIP? No, I haven't heard. I do know there's a way because there's so many different processes, even for someone like myself that's at an advanced stage, advanced level. There's certain processes or procedures I haven't gotten around to yet, just to give you guys a heads up. There's a lot of different things. There's like even linking your Treasury Direct account up. There's some things you have to have in place. I saw the brother I gave a shout out to earlier, by the way. And I want to say, I know he's particular too, but I just wanted to give credit where credit is due to those brothers. The names I mentioned, those are people, by the way, I just gave you guys a jewel. All those people I named, they're more advanced and I'm followers of their work. And there's many others out there throughout the years. I woke up to this information in 2004, but I definitely like this information I'm going over with you guys about the adhesion contract. Some of the gurus, some of them don't know, but I know about a poor man's do not detain list. I was working on doing a video I mentioned a long time ago for everybody that's paid for private consultation. But I was thinking about probably would put it out there anyway, for just so you guys have on a platform. But there might be a part that's definitely going to be probably part 2 and 3 because I won't be able to fit everything in. Plus, I'm at the plantation, as I call it, and this is a lot of information to go over, guys. So just bear with me. Oh, dropped one of my Federal Reserve notes. Went over earlier. I'm just putting this together. That legally this is not money, this currency. And Yusuf harps on that a lot, how he states there's not money, but he goes into the details. And some of the laws, based on what processes you're doing, can conflict with one another if you don't understand that process or procedure. By the way, that's why this stuff can be very intricate. This is like the taboo subject or the elephant in the room. I do understand people get confused, but because I've been studying this information for many years, I'm able to see what the differences or variations are and what's important, as I'm coming in newer information too, why that assumed name is important, or DBA, which I have done that in the past. But there's other ways of giving public notice. I've done a common law copyright. I did that, a common law copyright years ago, by the way, when I did a UCC, but that particular filing expired. So I have another updated one to do. But it stayed in the public record for over 5 years. So I don't know what was up with that, by the way. But I think eventually it dropped out the system. But keep in mind, you can always reference your old filings. I also have stuff that was ran in the paper. I have an indigenous name. I also have another contract that was ran in the paper. Remember, that's legal notice. When they don't rebut the presumption, that becomes law after 30 days, at least 4 weeks That's legal notice, by the way. So that's good information, Chief Vegas. So says, so I can send my 1099-C to a creditor to eliminate the debt. Yes, you can, but it depends. I don't really know. I'm gonna be honest with you. That 1099-C specifically, I've always heard the gurus, or I would say advanced people, because I don't consider myself to be a guru, but guys, by the way, I'm at a certain level. I always say intel providers are people that are advanced and sharing this knowledge dealing with redemption. I haven't heard anyone other than a minute few recently, but they've always talked about the A and the or the OIDs or the A's, the B's, the WIFIT process. I've never heard anyone really break down and see. I did hear actually someone recently, but you know, I still, in terms of there's a public side way, like what I'm kind of going over. The reason I'm doing this video, Chief, if you're still watching, is to protect you, help protect you. If you're doing this stuff and you still haven't removed certain contracts, or you haven't done advanced processes, like for example, Yusuf has a video that's titled, "Do you need to file paperwork or something like that to get your freedom?" I say yes and no. There's two sides. You need to also dismantle contracts too. It's not just there is important paperwork or things you need to do digitally. You need to file digitally to put on notice, but there's also contracts you need to remove. You need to get rid of. That's the elephant in the room. You got to do both. There's things you need to put on record, like giving notice, like dealing like with the assumed name, for example, or trademark, copyrights. But then like this video I'm doing, there's contracts you need to also remove. That's what's going to help protect you even more. It's going to create a layer, because I've read instances, older information, where it's judges in the past that have tried to assist people, and they would even ask, they would say, "Is your name copywritten?" There's something, you know, I've read documents from people, that stories that dealt with this type of information when it wasn't as much information years ago, and the people weren't as well studied as they are now, where some instances where judges even asked the person in court, they say, "Are you referring to the decedent?" The decedent is dealing with a state, decedent estate. You see, because what happened is they act as the administrator. Your name, your all caps name, is already in the state, by the way. But see, when you file in the state, you're bringing the dead man back alive. They're becoming alive again. But there's other things that you need to do. You need to file as well. But there's also contracts. Remember that anything that's attached to that SSN, that's a benefit privilege. By the way, those adhesion contracts, many times those are benefit privileges. But see, the thing is, the pros don't outweigh the cons. Like the benefits, they're making thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars behind your back, or monetizing off your name, and they're not giving you a cut of that. It's like when people showing up for jury duty. You got to pay for parking downtown, for example, which I've never been to before, by the way, and I'm not entering into that contract. It's something I'm going to do, but people have complained. You got to pay for parking. They don't pay you nothing. People said this years ago. There was females I talked to, had a discussion, maybe back in college before I knew this information. And they said they only pay you like $50, maybe $70 a day. What is that nowadays? Nothing. When some people have jobs making way more than that. By the way, you have to pay for parking. If you can only park certain places for 3 hours, that's $100 ticket, by the way. And what is the purpose? I mean, you have to find somebody to drop you off, or you would have to catch the bus. And some people are particular because public transportation is crappy. And some instances, if you were selected for jury duty, if you don't get there in time, you can get penalized for that or whatever. If you entered into that contract or whatever, it's not worth it. But see, the benefits, the pros don't outweigh the cons. So that's why I'm not a registered voter. There's also other contracts I'm going to be giving public notice, and I'm proud. I say that proudly. Now, let me say this too, because some people get it the wrong way. They think, how can I say? They say, "Oh, you're on the far right," but the thing is, I'm not on the left or right. Even though I do swing more, I swing more to the right politically because they support the family structure. I support God, family, and the Constitution overall, the traditional family. But I do have a liberal side But to be balanced for the sake of this voter registration is a particular contract. As this previous election proved, for the first time, well, it's not the first time ever, because Bush stole the election back in 2000 versus Gore, and Democrats do cheat against each other. But what I saw played out was evidence that even if I was registered, my vote wouldn't have counted, because I would have voted for Trump. But it wouldn't have counted because they just used the Dominion, the Smartmatic machines anyway. Then you have Janice Winfrey, who's the city clerk, who I heard she ran against the guy that's the lieutenant governor, Garland Gilchrist, back in 2018. And he was in the lead. He was beating her until it got to one last precinct and a power outage happened, similar to former Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick when he was going up against a guy named Freeman back in like 05 or something like that, when he was running. I can't remember what year, if that was 04, 05. There was a power outage at Mumford High School, conveniently. Then when the lights came back on, Kwame was in the lead all of a sudden. And that was funny. I had some relative tell me Kwame was on TV at the time saying, watch God move, watch God was getting ready, because he had some people controlling what was getting ready to happen behind it, to show you how Democrats cheat amongst each other. It's not just, a Republican thing, but I saw so much corruption. There was votes that were switched. Remember Antrim County, Michigan, that was up north in Michigan. Remember they admitted that? And that's how they found, well, other reasons they said, if this happened to this county, because I found out from the Epoch Times, because you had the mainstream media constantly telling you there was no voter fraud, there's no corruption. Yes, there hell it was. I can prove it. I still found an article online where the city clerk, Janice Winfrey, was subpoenaed by our state legislature that is Republican controlled, by the way. Now, I don't agree with, there's things that, remember, those are policies, different policies each side has. So it doesn't mean I co-sign or agree with everything each side has. Some issues I'm bipartisan on, by the way. Just keep that in mind. People get so caught up in which party you're on, Democrat or Republican, like the Bloods versus the Crips. And I know some people come from a perspective like Dorsey, both parties are controlled. I know that, but there is people who are also outside the establishment too, by the way. And I don't believe Trump was, by the way, a Mason. A lot of secret societies, by the way, which I haven't touched on, that are within the establishment. Because if you're a Mason or you're part of the Illuminati, they're going to protect you. They aren't going to allow what happened with Trump to happen. And it was Masons, like I believe Brian Kemp, it's probably a traveling man, a governor down in Georgia, what he did, and they said he made a deal with Stacey Abrams. This is how the Prince Hall Black Masons behind the scenes do deals with white Masons. When behind, publicly, they might be calling them a racist, but behind the scenes, they're shaking hands because they're part of the secret society. You see, that's how they have codes and messages and car emblems and stuff. See, but you guys in the public that don't pay attention to stuff like that, don't understand how they communicate or whatever. But there was definitely voter fraud. There was corruption. The election was fixed for ding ding and ho ho. Biden did steal his way in. I call it the commander and thief. It's not commander in chief, commander and thief. But who knows? When you have the governor colluded with the attorney general and the Secretary of State, which is her job, Jocelyn Benson, which is supposed to investigate. And when you were going in Department of Motor Vehicles and Secretaries of State years ago, even individual departments throughout the city, they would have a screen would tell you to report voter fraud and things of that sort. I noticed she changed it because they used the COVID rules to kick those people out of Joe Louis Arena. Formerly Cobo Hall, by the way, downtown Detroit. That was called the TCF Center, just like the State Farm Arena in Atlanta. By the way, they used the COVID protocols. I saw there was a leak tape that somebody had put on YouTube. I didn't know about, but all these things they had to plan for when they stole this election. You see, but notice YouTube colludes. YouTube wants to go after people when they mention stuff like this. So I'm not going to harp too much more on it. But I just mentioned they also threatened the two Republican board canvassers, Monica Palmer, William Hartman, rest in peace. I found out he just died not too long ago. Both their families were threatened. Remember that? But Monica Palmer was promised by the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, she was going to do a forensic audit. And the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, promises equity and fairness, but didn't want to do a forensic audit, by the way, but claims there was no voter fraud, that it was a fair election when there was hundreds of signed affidavits. And there was judges, prestigious judges, that didn't want to evaluate the case. Even the Supreme Court was told to stand down by Chief Justice Roberts because he claims there would be riots on the streets. But next go around, I think you're going to have that's going to happen anyway. It's going to be bad. I would hate to be in their shoes. I'm just saying, by the way, I wouldn't want to be in their contracts, contracting as those public people. Because remember also, when judges and lawyers, when they're speaking from the bench and they say they're the honorable, that's the title, by the way. Those are titles. So that's a form of contract. Just like you have a license and your all caps name, they're doing business as they're members of the Bar Association, British Accredited Registry. Those are titles. Those are forms of contracts, adhesion contracts, you see. But I just laid out verbally. If you look up some of the information I went over, just prove there was absolute corruption. But the reason I'm bringing this up, and some people say, oh, Dorsey, why do you care about this? Are you caping for Trump? Are you caping for the white man? This is what liberals will say to me. No, they also cheated in lower elections, like with Senator John James and Gary Peters. And a lot of other Republicans had commanding leads over their candidates that same election night that Biden had thousands of votes show up early in the wee hours of the morning, because I work a night shift, by the way. I'm at the plantation now, by the way. And I saw Department of Elections vehicles when I was driving home on a freeway, on a Southfield Freeway, by the way. Many of you all who live in Detroit or Michigan know about that freeway, just to let you guys know. And I saw stuff earlier in the day that said there's something really fishy going on, and I see what it was. I'm just saying, I'm not a registered voter, so I don't have a pony in this race, technically. Now, I still respect people's right. I don't want to be attached to the negative consequences behind that, but the reason I'm bringing this up is you got to have fair elections. You need to have integrity. You know, Democrats, like I told the story about City Clerk Janice Winfrey, by the way, who cheated against Garland Gilchrist when he was running for city clerk back in 2018. He's now the lieutenant governor. It's like the equivalent of Whitmer's vice president. That's what they call the lieutenant governor. And he was supposed to win that election. I believe he would have won, but she cheated. She did the same thing, just like Kwame did back in against Freeman years ago. So show you proof Democrats cheating. This was brought up at the hearings that Giuliani came to. I watched those, and that other lawyer, Jenna Ellis. But I did pay attention. I pay attention to all sides to show you how brilliant I am, because I'm supposed to be a stupid black man. That I had a white guy tell me this, that worked with me at one time. I'm supposed, stereotypically, I'm supposed to not pay attention and listen to rap music and be ignorant and smoke weed and blunts and just be stupid. But I think they said Malcolm X quoted that an intelligent black man is a threat to the establishment, or a white man, etc. Something like that. It's a famous quote. And Malcolm X even warned us about white liberals, by the way. I hear even liberals have brought that up. Just saying, you know, I have to get political sometimes, because these politically, these contracts, being a registered voter, you don't get rid of that shit. Don't be a registered voter. Get rid. I'm telling you, that's one of the things that's protected my black ass all these years, by the way. You also, it helps if you have a UCC, a non-UCC filing. That's one of the things. This is why I titled this Advanced Master Course, to help lean the name up, have proof you've captured the estate, have an assumed name in place. By the way, I have a source I've got to talk to again. That Minnesota DBA is still powerful, even if you're out of state. By the way, if you know how to file that. But these things show, because they're going after, when they want to pull you in their jurisdiction, they're going after your name. It's one of the first things the judge, they ask you, what is your name? Say, no, what is not my name? My name is so-and-so, family of, or I'm the registered owner of the legal person. How may I assist you? You know, something to that effect. I don't remember, don't quote me. But there's different things why they want jurisdiction over the name. You see, they're using your legal fiction, by the way. They're using trickery and deception, by the way. In some instances, you're supposed to be able to appoint them as fiduciary, but people didn't trust like that usufruct process procedure years ago, because when you would appoint them as a fiduciary, they wouldn't properly do their job, by the way, because they want to, in the interest of the court, they can use what's called plausible deniability in some instances and act like they don't know what you're talking about. That's why I had one lawyer tell me years ago when I had an illegal wage garnishment happen with a security company I used to work for. And I actually had the state law that they were in violation. I actually found a way how to get rid of that. Anyway, but the lawyer had told me at the time, he said, don't give me that UCC straw man stuff. He was using plausible deniability. That he heard about it, but he was acting as though. But I said, sir, I said there's a state law that states wage garnishments are illegal without a court order. And he said, I don't. I said, why is that? He kept saying, I don't know. At that time, I didn't have the specific law, but I found the statute later on. But he was using plausible deniability. Look that term up. This is where they used the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case in 1938. The court systems changed from common law to under color of law, statutory, de facto jurisdiction. You see, they're using trickery, deception, fraud, by the way. That's why you got to be very careful if you want to hire an attorney or lawyer. They work overall, they're for the court. So no matter what side you're on, it's kind of like different teams play against each other in the NBA, the National Basketball Association. But just like in 2016, they wanted to help one team win. They suspended Draymond Green from the Golden State Warriors to help LeBron's Cavs win the championship. Remember back then, Coach Steve Kerr, which normally coaches don't lash out, they were mad, upset about it. I don't believe LeBron and Kyrie would have beat Golden State. And then in that same game, J.R. Smith, center Andrew Bogut. It's one of Warriors' problems now is they're going too small. They're relying on small ball too much. They need a big man. Phoenix Suns, they're a well-oiled machine, doing very well at this time. But see, I'm just tying this in to explain that the court system is like the National Basketball Association. That's why a lot of times they want to appoint an attorney for you because they've dumbed down the general public. Most of the general public is not educated, even to myself to a large degree. I'm still doing research, but I've learned the blueprint of the infrastructure they've used and how not to contract and how to stay out of their arena. Because remember, the court system's also like their home court. You've heard of home court advantage, so they're not going to play fair. That's why refs, generally teams that have home court advantage, the refs will call more fouls on the visiting team. So what do you think? You going to actual court in real life? You think the judges and lawyers are going to be fair with you when you don't know the proper words to say? Just something to think about. Think about it. Use critical thinking. So I'm going to read the rest of the chat, then I'm going to get on to the next session. Says G Floor says, hello, my friend. This is Gregory. We're the merchant and the government is the debtor. The UCC code says, yes, you're correct. DCJ News Media says, you're onto something. I've been studying the law 44 years. Says maxims of law, bedrock of law, principle, tenets, morals, and ethics of law. Yes. Says we ought to talk. Retired chief of police 2 times. Okay, respect you. I respect my Leos. By the way, I have to say I do work in security. You know what I'm saying? Got my logo, blue lives do matter, even though I do support. In terms of Black Lives Matter, some may be wondering, I think Black lives should matter. I support the moniker. There's a difference, but not the organization. Keep in mind, there's different chapters of the organization, and they don't agree with each other. So let me explain that real quick. Politically, by the way, I think there's bad things that happen. Like it's really sad what happened to George Floyd. Until I woke up and found out George Soros was funding a lot of these things. I supported the Mike Brown thing many years ago, but I didn't understand the manipulation. Remember, the mainstream media used to say, because they're pushing a lot of propaganda that paid professional protesters are coming into town. Remember, they used to say professional protesters. Some of you all that have a good memory, because the Mike Brown was like the spark of that. And Black Lives Matter was started by 3 lesbian women, by the way. Patrice Cullors was one of them. Some call Patrice Kine Cullors, by the way. But when it comes to divvying up the spoils, I, as a Black man, I don't see the benefits of that. Notice with Biden's in office, by the way, I just want to say this on a side note, because I was going to do a separate video. This all ties in, but by the way, but notice crimes are going up in the major cities. This is not a coincidence. I saw this coming. This is all by design, by the way, but it goes deeper. It's a big agenda with very wealthy people. By the way, crime is shooting up. It's not a coincidence. What else I was going to harp on? But with Biden, my pet peeve, remember when Ice Cube, the rapper, had something called the Platinum Plan? And I don't hear all these activists that were saying we need to get rid of Trump. We need to get Trump. I don't see them putting the same type of pressure on Biden when he allocated 20 million for crack pipes, said reparations for illegal immigrants. Now, you guys know that's one issue I support. A lot of I had a subscriber that's a conservative Trump supporter. He didn't support reparations, and that's fine. We disagree on different things. I'm not like some liberal women on the left that'll be mad or won't want to talk to you anymore, or won't want to give you the pussy if you just support Trump. Yeah, I'm not into petty stuff like that, But I feel Trump was the overall better candidate. He's not perfect, but he's not establishment like a lot of like Obama, the Bushes, the Clintons. They have deep ties to the secret societies, the Illuminati, the ruling class elite. Trump is more real, by the way. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people don't understand. I pay attention to a lot of the issues. I saw the things that CNN, MSNBC didn't cover. By the way, when Bob Johnson was at the White House with Dr. Ben Carson, when Trump increased the money for HBCUs, historically Black college universities, which Obama decreased the funding for. And let me say, why is Howard University, they're sleeping in tents now? I also saw a report that Biden decreased the funding for historically Black college universities. So he might do one good thing in a certain area, but they'll cover something else up. They'll cover up how Ukraine has ties to a white supremacist separatist group. I found the photos online, found out from InfoWars, by the way. I saw them report on it. Then I found with a photo, there's a battalion they recognize. I actually saw recently where ABC News, the mainstream media, reported on this separatist group. They recognized them. They put the Nazi flag with the Ukraine flag. There are a lot of people, even Black liberals, are putting in their photos. And I said, Black people should not have nothing to do with that war. Like that guy in Detroit had his church praying for him, going overseas to fight. And I said, he's just because he said he was a veteran of World War II, and said he compares their struggle to the civil rights movement. And I said, what? I said, I've never heard of such, but I do feel Black Americans are owed reparations. I saw a good video on YouTube that says it would cost like 14 trillion, but I know they have the money to do it. Inflation is happening anyway, but they've never repaired the damage to minorities and people of color. That is an issue that I do have. I do agree with reparations, by the way. And Biden, once again, what I don't like that crack pipe, ding, ding, let's go, Brandon, idiot did, had the nerve, give illegal immigrants. You have Black people been struggling over here, and you still got a lot of these Black bourgeois idiots fucking still supporting this idiot, this decrepit idiot that stole his way in, allocated 20 million for crack pipes. Even an activist, Dr. Umar Johnson, would nut it up. But I need to see the same type of energy y'all gave to Trump. Some of you fake ass liberal female fucking feminists. Yes, I said it. Amanda Seals, who else? Jamel Hill. I need to see that same type of energy on Biden. Put pressure on him on reparations. They told Ice Cube, said, we'll holler at you after the election. So there is a lot. I do feel they did social engineering to devastate the Black community without going into the details. They won't tell you. Even Martin Luther King protested against the Vietnam War because Black men, remember Muhammad Ali? He refused to go and he had to end up doing jail time. They say one of the greatest icons of the world, before he died, he became one of the most beloved, iconic figures in the world. But they don't tell you he was Cassius Clay back then. He had changed his name to Muhammad. He protested. And that's one of the things, before Martin Luther King died, he went against the establishment. Despite you got some bum out here in Chicago spitting venom on a lot of our civil rights activists. But a lot of Black people don't understand what was going on during that time period. The actual issue. Kennedy was looking out. A lot of Black people switched over to the Democratic Party because Kennedy was looking out more so for Black people at the time. But the Republican Party were the abolitionists that fought to end slavery. It was the Democrats that were trying to recapture slaves. That's why the South, they had their own confederacy. They lost the Civil War. The South was racist. Biden, they just switched their tactics up. By the way, George Wallace back in the 70s, before he died or something happened to him, I heard he said we got to start doing more things for blacks. That was a public relations move. They're using the same tactics today. That's why Biden did what he did with the black Supreme Court justice, which I'm not knocking. You know what I'm saying? But where's our reparations? They never repaired the damage. See, when Lyndon Baines Johnson said, I'll have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years, what people don't understand is that that just put a Band-Aid on things. Remember, they created those programs called the entitlement programs. That's what it was called. Remember, Martin Luther King, remember, he helped broker that deal, but he later said, I'm afraid I'm leading my people into a burning house. Know your history. See how well studied I am? But who's mentioning that? You know, I'm just saying on behalf of my people, melanated people in the black community, it was some group out there did an excellent video. I don't remember the name. It was on YouTube. I didn't mean to get off track, but it just boils my blood. And Biden gives all this money to Ukraine. And I see all these black people with these Ukrainian flag logos. And see, those people, they're fighting for their people. You see, so you can have a nationality within the nationality over here. But it was the Democrats who, when you study the history, they're the bad ones. It's not the Republicans. They're not perfect. But however, they're not trying to get rid of the family structure. They're not trying to change, support all this, other bad things, because it's gonna get worse if they get their way. By the way, where they want to eventually want men to pass a law for men to wear dresses, stuff like that. Can get worse than that. This is coming from the liberal left, progressives. It's not coming from Republicans. That's why I said I'm for God, family, and the Constitution. We're a nation of laws. But I think even white people, you got to learn the law. That I was telling a friend of mine this, because he's a black conservative, black Republican, and he's amazed. He's very well studied, but he knows that I'm stronger in this discipline. You see, just like, for example, if you take certain martial arts, somebody's, let's say, a master of Shaolin Kung Fu, but another guy may be a master of Wing Chun. I'm a master in my discipline. And I explained to him that flag that Kaepernick was protesting, by the way, did you know that's not the real American flag of peace? That flag means we're at war. That's an Admiralty Maritime flag. And that ties in with this video, this title that I'm doing with the adhesion contracts. Did you know there's guys that have turned courtrooms into a common law court because those judges, they're acting as many of their oath of offices aren't current, and they're issued. I have to follow up with one of my other private sources, but he showed me the evidence. A lot of times they're privately connected to the military. Those are tribunal courts. The military has their own court system too, but even your regular civilian courts, that's Admiralty. Admiralty's military and maritime is law of the seas. They've combined both jurisdictions. And that flag that Kaepernick was protesting, I know it has something to do with that national anthem, but the flag itself, there's another flag that is actually represents the true American flag of peace. And that's the peacetime flag. It's not that flag. That's, a lot of white people are mistaken. So they got people fighting over the wrong thing. One side that's mad at Kaepernick, they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. Kaepernick and his side, they don't know what the hell they're talking about, because that's not, look it up. That's not the real American flag of peace. I found it online. There's different websites that shows you the difference of the true American peacetime flag. You might have to type that in a Google or search engine. I'm giving you guys so much powerful information. That's why I titled this a master class. But I'm gonna have to show you guys my street side versus my professional side, to cut right to the nitty gritty. But that's my pet peeve with Biden, ding ding and ho ho. He puts like 200 billion to Ukraine. We still haven't, as Black Americans, African Americans, melanated people, have not received reparations over here. This is a slap in the face. And Ice Cube and all those people that supported the Platinum Plan, they should be putting pressure on Biden, being behind the scenes, ding ding and ho ho, behind the scenes, demand reparations immediately. And Black Americans stop supporting that, jumping on to everybody else's struggle, that Ukraine shit. Because they're not telling you the bioweapons labs. I found the map. Boy, Google hasn't censored that yet. Just look it up. There is bioweapons labs over. That's one of, I'm not caping for Russia because they're not perfect either. You know, of course, obviously you see what's going on, what's being played out. and obviously the color, I'm a melanated man, but you got to be careful of the liberal, progressive, controlled mainstream media coming from CNN, MSNBC, Huffington Post, etc. They're not going to tell you the full side because people will be mad. I know a lot of liberals. I told, look, you saw how they were treating the Africans and the Hindus that were trying to get on, trying to leave. They were trying to force them to stay and fight. Talking about Ukrainians first. They were African students from Nigeria. But they don't tell you Ukraine has a white separatist, white supremacist army that has a Ukraine flag with the Nazi flag. And it's still online. You can find, if you know how to research, you can find an image. Best believe if they haven't censored it, removed it, because they probably will try to remove it because they don't want, because when it comes to the narrative, MSNBC, CNN, if they knew a lot of their followers, especially black people that put these Ukraine flags and they saw that, they said, oh, they would take them flags down from their social media immediately. But see, they play these games with brainwashing, programming. That's why you call it TV program. But they're pushing propaganda, by the way. I just had to say that. I didn't mean to go off. Guys, I'm going to read this section. I'm going to get ready to shut this video down. I'm going to read the part about the marriage license, by the way, because that's something a lot of people don't know about. Yes, I'm gonna read these rest of these comments from the chat section. Okay, I says DCJ News Media says I do non-statutory trusts and PMAs. Okay, I'm not sure what the PMAs is, an acronym for state citizen versus federal citizen. Okay, I'm aware of that. We had a guy years ago in our group. He was a Wayne County sheriff. He actually brought a document at the time about the difference with state. So it's like a different caste system. That's why I told people there's different processes within this movement. It says, I really like it that you have good knowledge, a good knowledge base. I can take you further. Okay, appreciate it. It says lack of disclosure by the state unless objectives are made to driver's license. Yes. What I was going to mention too, once again, the driver's license, don't be an organ donor and also don't be a registered voter. That's very important. By the way, now I do understand, I have to give this disclaimer. Some people do have health conditions. In those instances, if you are on the organ donor list or whatever, I do understand these are rare, but there are people that are almost, I won't say invalid or almost indigent that still try to do this information. By the way, it can be more difficult. There are ways to protect yourself, but keep in mind it will be harder because you will need someone knowledgeable to assist you in that endeavor. And like I say, to reiterate, I don't do data processing. I do provide private consultations for people because I give the people what they want. They said years ago, whatever people were requesting, said, hey, Dorsey, I want to talk to you or whatever. And I have that set up. Just read the description box of the email. The people that get the consultations right away, as soon as I see the Cash App or PayPal come in, the funds, I will contact you. Just remember to leave your number so I can get in touch with you, because had an incident recently, but it was rectified. I had to do something a certain way through Cash App where the individual paid me already, and I let them know I had to put a message in, so they had because I didn't have their number. I had no way of contacting them. So just make sure if you do, and I see if it's I charge my fees are $50 per half hour. By the way, I recommend if you're trying to do this, it's going to be for redemption education, for a thorough understanding. It's going to take at least an hour. There's a lot of education that comes to changing, correcting your status. But this is I won't say a shortcut, but these are things that definitely help protect you. Once again, don't be a registered voter. Your bank accounts and stuff, try, it's best to have utilized a business or different entity, or if you're set up, you have an estate number already, you're doing business as a state tax ID, because anything that's attached to the SSN, those are adhesion contracts. That's why certain paperwork you want to file to put public notice, and then other contracts you want to remove. Like there's a lot of people I harp on this over and over, because people are so brainwashed to say, oh, our ancestors died for the right to vote. Well, the problem is that there's a difference between registration versus recording. Registration is public, recording is different. It's similar, but one is given a record. And see, the statutory side has enslaved the lawful government. The legal government has enslaved the lawful government because the majority rules, because the majority are brainwashed people on the legal side. So what you can do an affidavit vote. This was mentioned years ago, but many people, as we come more and more into the future in society, with less and less people being informed, more people being brainwashed, and they're not learning, they don't distinguish. So when they want you to register, you're registering with the state, and you're further confirming you're a resident. They're confirming your address, which the voter register ties in with. You're saying you're a resident. You're saying you're a U.S. citizen. You're a U.S. person. See, they're pulling you in their jurisdiction. So get rid of that. And you have the right by law. They have to send you a copy. If you're in Detroit, I will go down there with you to the Department of Elections. Years ago, I wasn't afraid at all. Once I found that out, she said Paula was a former police officer, and she said that's one of the first things you need to do. And guess what I did? I took my black ass down there and canceled that voter registration quickly. And that was back in 2004. If I had a copy, I've shown you guys in some of my older videos. But that's one of the things that's helped protect me. And she said, as a police officer, imagine they used to train police officers when she was a cop back then how to deal with, she said, sovereign citizens. They don't do that no more. They may have updated. I don't know. By the way, I haven't jumped up to that level. I could have, by the way. That's a whole nother story. I could have been PD. Still not too late. But however, I have a plan. I eventually, because these jobs are a contract too. I'm not even supposed to be still, in this position, but it is for what it is. Job is just over broke, by the way. Jobs also can make you a federal employee, even though you're thinking you don't necessarily have to work for the federal government to be a federal employee. I didn't kind of go into details. That's why I said this video gets extensive. There have to be a part 2 and 3, maybe even a 4 or 5, because this information gets extensive. It's not hard, but you want to dismantle those contracts. You want to rescind and revoke, like this says how to rescind or revoke unjust adhesion contracts. You want to get rid of those. Okay. It said lack of disclosure by the states unless objectors are made to the deep driver's license. It's not valid. Reach out to me, my brother. Says, okay. Got the flag, the symbol. Okay. Appreciate it, DCJ. Okay. I see several logos. I do recognize other faiths, by the way. Shalom, inshallah. Peace be unto you. Thank you for the love. Peace, love, and joy to all our people. Be a free man. 1983 military manual on words. Salvage at sea. Yes, I am an elector as a state citizen. Okay. Very interesting, because I heard about it's the electoral college. That's it. That's really important. That makes the decision. And I think it's different levels, because you have your delegates and super delegates too. See, so that's the differences versus your regular registered voter as U.S. citizens. But one of my sources, private confirmed sources, that explained to me that it doesn't even count, but the consensus that's in control, there's a lot of lobbying that goes on. But you want to rescind that voter registration. That's one of the most important adhesion contracts to get rid of. But it doesn't stop there. And don't be an organ donor, by the way. Okay, it says, let me see. I'm going to read the rest. It says, federal citizens are voters, big differences. Yes. It says, hey, my good brother, reach out to me. Okay, definitely. Well, I say it's best for you to reach out. Just shoot me an email and let me know in relation, so I know who you are. So it's not, I don't get it mixed up with private consultations. It says, God bless you and your family, brother. Okay, appreciate it. God bless you as well. Thank you for the compliment. Says got a split. Okay, inshallah. Thank you, thank you. Mary Saunders says hello, hello, Mr. Joyce. Appreciate you, Mary. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you. Tanya Reynolds says peace. Jabi clapping. Star Source says only people with a nationality can get reparations. Says NATO. I says howdy, Dorsey. Hope you're having a good night. Okay. Now to address briefly, Ramah. I do get where you're coming from. However, on the statutory side, they do recognize as Black, African, even though those are descriptions. I debated a friend of mine quite a bit. That's a Black conservative, and he's told me I've almost swayed his opinion. By the way, when it comes to reparations, by the way, but I feel once again, I shouldn't say I feel. I know this is wrong, but I have to go into the history. When Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, when Martin Luther King helped lobby, fight for, John F. Kennedy played a role. That legislation was actually authored off of the original legislation because Republicans actually created the Civil Rights Act. And that particular legislation was based off of the Republicans' Civil Rights Act that they created many years ago. I don't remember the timeline. When Kennedy, he was, and similar to Trump's shoes, a lot of his fellow Democrats, because remember, the South was a Confederacy. The South was the racists. The Democrats were the ones that created the Jim Crow laws. The Democrats created the Black codes. By the way, in the early 1900s, after Reconstruction, the Democrats ended the Reconstruction. They were the ones that sent out slave captures to recapture slaves because the South, they didn't want to let that revenue go. They were making off the slaves, but they had their own government too. So I get what they were coming from. I'm not trying to necessarily poo-poo, but at the same time, it didn't benefit us being Black Americans that had ancestors during that time, but they never repaired the damage. You see, they gave reparations to the Japanese, the Jewish community for something, the Caucasian, let me correct, Hasidic Jews, many of them that converted to Judaism, like what's going on in Ukraine. In Ukraine, that country, the landmark is formerly, that's Khazaria. That's where you get Khazar Empire. They converted to Judaism. InfoWars, check out Band.video. Greg Reese, who I've never met before, did a very good breakdown about the history and about Ukraine's ties to the Nazis. And even ties in with some of the white people over here, Caucasians, their European ancestry. Because just like Black Americans, we're mixed in. Many of us are mixed in. White people are too. Just like in Africa, many white people, you have Scottish, Irish, German. You have the pigs, Portugal, Ireland, Greece, Spain. You have different ethnic groups within ethnic groups, but there's a close relation. And Ukraine never annexed their borders. It's kind of like the Russians are fighting each other, by the way, because Ukraine in the early 1900s, they never properly broke away from the Soviet Union. They were formerly part of the Soviet Union, and their borders. Remember how Germany used to have, East, was it East and West Germany? Remember that broke up years ago, and then North Korea is still separate. Well, Ukraine never properly annexed themselves, going back to the early 1900s. So it's like an eternal war, and that's why I said Black Americans, melanated, should not be getting involved. Let that brainwashing go. Stop following MSNBC and CNN. They're pushing a lot of propaganda. Now, MSNBC, I will say, I forget, they did do an article to back up what I'm saying, by the way. You have to research it, that Ukraine has a white supremacist separatist group that put the Nazi flag along with that Ukraine flag that a lot of people are putting in their social media logo or wearing the emblems at the Oscars. And I get where they're coming from to try to show support. But a lot of liberals would be upset if they found out Ukraine has, and they recognize, I've heard ABC News report, this white separatist group is recognized by the Ukrainian army. So I know some liberals will take issue with that. Now, some liberals that I do know who are aware, who mention this, but a lot of others aren't. If they knew that, that's how the mainstream media is controlling their base. They want a lot of people to be dumbed down, to be programmed. But Ukraine is not perfect either. They aren't the goody two shoes. They have bioweapons labs over there that as well that was doing things, and that was a problem. Putin brought up. The mainstream media is trying to say that this is right-wing propaganda. No, it's not. I found the map. Why is the map? Google hasn't censored the map. Why was I able to pull that up? Because I'm intelligent. You see, I do research that a lot of you guys, if I'm listening to InfoWars or Alex Jones, the difference with me is I'll look up the articles to see if he's telling the accuracy, and I'll compare it to CNN and MSNBC. And you know what? Alex Jones wins every time because it's predominantly propaganda that's coming from MSNBC, CNN, and other mainstream, even Huffington Post and Root, a lot of these different independent New York Times, they're not telling you the whole picture. Imagine this information that I'm going over, by the way. How many people was teaching you and showing you the articles? Just something to think about. It says Jews were claiming German. Yes, many of the Caucasian Jews. Now, some of them are mixed in. I'm aware of that too, the Sanhedrins or whatever. But remember, there was some rabbis years ago. They visited a part of Ethiopia, and they wanted to know why the Ethiopians spoke Yiddish and had their same teachings. Is because they taught them originally years prior. They converted. There was a time period, many years, thousands, hundreds, thousands of years ago, when they had missionaries that traveled up in that region of the world. By the way, like Ukraine, which is formerly Khazaria, you could look up the old map. These countries like Iraq was part of Mesopotamia years ago. I had history teachers. See, in modern day society, people are not looking up the older maps. Some of these you can find online, like what Ukraine used to be called. That's why a lot of white supremacists have ties over there. War junkies, by the way, because killing is more in their nature. They love killing people. And I'm just saying, that's where you get Caucasus Mountains, Caucasoid, Caucasian. That's not a coincidence. Greg Reese from InfoWars did an excellent video. If you go over to band.video, freeworldnews.tv, go to Censored by Jack, look up. Just saying, they mention a real history. But that's why, because remember, a lot of you all may not know, our U.S. Marines stopped a lot of white supremacists from joining some years ago. You can look up because they were getting training and stuff. And they had like a whole task force. So that's why a lot of them are going to that region of the world to fight both parts, because there's ties in with their nationality, their ethnic roots. You see, just like we have a right as melanated Americans, black people, to have, to want to see our people do well in terms of our ethnic roots. But see, they like to use what I don't like. They're using black people, our people, as pawns. They've already brainwashed us. They've gotten a lot of our women. They've turned against us with the welfare state years ago when the Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundation funded the women's liberation movement. Remember, that was admitted by former movie producer Aaron Russo. By the way, he did a documentary called Freedom and Fascism. He met Aaron Russo. This is facts. This is not hearsay. And he mentioned that he was upheld by it. By the way, Nick Rockefeller bragged to Aaron Russo about this, but that targeted my people. That hurt me. That made it more difficult for me as a black man to try to meet a better quality woman, because they turned our women against us years ago with the welfare state. That still is evident of why you have so many beefs going on YouTube, for example. A friend of mine calls those rap beefs, the battle of the sexes between the men and women. A lot of that comes from that Rockefeller Ford Foundation. They funded the feminist movement. Who did Hillary Clinton have sitting next to her the night she lost to Donald Trump? Gloria Steinem, by the way, who admitted she was an agent by J. Edgar Hoover. That's declassified, by the way. This is not hearsay. It's not a coincidence, because Hillary thought she was going to be the first female president. That's why it's not a coincidence. She was sitting next to Hillary that night. And I said, where have I seen this woman before? Feminist. Gloria Steinem. Look her up. Look up. See, it's important to know your history, even though it's his story, but it's important for us to know our story. You see, that's why I'm very well studied, by the way. Let me go back to read. I'm going to finish reading this article, then I'm going to shut this video down. Appreciate you guys joining me. Now, to finish up, we're back to the marriage license is a contract. As such, it represents a limited partnership with the state being the superior third-party partner, yes, which in real terms means that the contract cannot be dissolved without permission from the state. Let me scroll down some more. It also represents a contract, over time for profit and gain, where the state has an interest in the children of the contract, as represented by benefit programs such as food stamps, cash assistance, medical assistance, aid to dependent children. That's what the Department of Human Services was called in Michigan years ago. It was called the Family Independence Agency at one time. That's all under the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, which has a division, a subdivision called the Michigan Disbursement Agency, which they're hiding that tax ID number, by the way, that needs to go on that 1099 form to pay things off, like for child support. See, they've used the men as a pawn, and specifically, you see how they weaponized these things. But I'm going to further read why the marriage, about the marriage license. Additionally, it also gives the state an interest in state divorced women's rights to alimony, child support payments, etc. Woo! Now I didn't even know I was going to mention that. I was starting to go there, but I didn't even know. Let me read that again. This is the marriage license. It says, additionally, it also gives the state an interest in state divorced women's rights to alimony, child support payments, etc. Woo! Woo! This is deep. Let me finish reading. The marriage license, it said, is an adhesion contract. Woo! Because most people are unaware and are uninformed fraud due to failure to disclose of the consequences and obligations of being a voluntary party into this three-party adhesion contract. They run right down to the county clerk's office, plunk down their money, and then later cannot figure out why the government is sticking its intrusive nose into their family affairs. Yep. Waivers of constitutional rights not only must be voluntary, but must be knowing, intelligent acts done with sufficient awareness of the relevant circumstances and likely consequences. Brady versus United States 397 US 742. I guess that's case law. Very powerful. It says to obtain a marriage license, it is necessary to pay a license fee, which is a tax. And this tax is upon a right. The right of marriage has long been antecedent to the establishment of the state. It says a Christian and true Israelite has an unalienable, granted by God and unallocated in the Bible right to marry. This is a scriptural right that is not a privilege extended by the state. The sacrament of marriage predates all forms of man's government. Therefore, what God has joined together, let man not separate. Matthew 19, 4-6, Mark chapter 10, 6-9. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and they will become one flesh. Genesis 2, chapter 2, 24. See, that's why when you lay down with the woman, that's why how it's a form of marrying her. But I understand in the modern day society of contracts, the difference is a state contract. If you don't create your own private contract, you can use a UCC financing statement to create a marriage contract. I have a friend that told me him and his wife down in Arkansas, they even went to Social Security, had honored even combining the names, but they didn't go through the state version because they were aware that's another type of contract. See, because they got most of the general public brainwashed. The marriage license provides the state with authority to assume jurisdiction over many aspects of that marriage relationship, such as assuring that children of such marriage attend public schools to a specific age, because the children from a state-sanctioned marriage are wards of the state until such time as they reach legal age as defined by the state. B, effectively making the natural parents of the resulting children of such marriage nothing more than surrogate mothers and fathers. Section C, creating a condition of corporate status in all parties as attaching to the articles of commerce and property of the state. Yes, many states are community property states, meaning if one spouse gets into trouble, certain types of trouble with the law, they can pull the other spouse in. A friend of mine told me some type of story about a couple down in Baltimore or whatever. That's why in some instances, the wife and some legal maneuvers can protect the man if the man murdered someone, but there can also be instances where if her husband murdered someone and a family's victims can file a civil suit, they can come after that wife. Or that's why that Derek Chauvin in that situation after he murdered George Floyd, his wife, that model he was married to, that's why I understood why she divorced him right away. By the way, because she knew automatically a civil suit was coming from that, and they tried to and the way that happened, that's why I just kind of give you guys an idea. But this article, once again, I'll read it again: creating a condition of corporate status in all parties as attaching to the articles of commerce and property of the state. So most states are community property states. The license allows the terms of this contract of adhesion to be subject to change at the whim of the legislature or regulatory agency, such as Health and Human Services, responsible for administering / supervising family-related functions. And Section E, inheritance tax laws are implemented by marriage licenses, which leads to effectively abolishing all rights to inheritance. This is the third plank of the Communist Manifesto and abrogates the common law right of inheritance expressed in the Bible. It says every state of the United States is limited in their jurisdictional mission. Thus, the states have no grant of jurisdiction to prevent, interfere, or obstruct rescission of contracts or the forfeiture of benefits, nor does the state have a grant of jurisdiction to restrain the cancellation of a marriage license with its attendant attachment of admiralty / equity jurisdiction such license initiates. It is important that it be understood that administrative law is hostile to common law rights, and administrative agencies are antagonistic to natural rights. For further confirmation of this point, refer to 1M Juris 2D administrative law section. Okay, that may be, okay, I'm not familiar with that. Is that a case law or some type of American jurisprudence? I'm not sure if that's like another law definition, something powerful, by the way. I'll just leave it at that. See, guys, I'm at a certain level in this. I should know that, but some stuff is even above the level I'm at, what I'm reading from. It says, but you guys get the most of what I'm reading. This is breaking down the marriage contract, the marriage license. It says, as the attendant result of the marriage license, some of the benefits derived thereof, but not limited, are as follows: food stamps, aid to dependent children, access to public schools, access to state mental health facilities, medical assistance, cash assistance, permission from the state to intermarry, marry one of another race, permission from the state to marry a defiled divorcee, benefits stemming from a state granted divorce, child support, alimony, state determination of child custody, state police power enforcement of child abuse statutes, old age retirement benefits stemming from the state sanctioned marriages, any and all benefits stemming from state aid programs, any and all benefits bestowed on those licensed in some capacity by the state, and any other benefits derived from the privilege of being in partnership with the state through the marriage license. Wow, now we have bank accounts. Well, guys, I think that's my time. I've gone well over my time. Next time I might try to stay more on topic, but I'm passionate about certain things. I try to tie, when I get a little bit off politically, I try to use examples to tie this in for newbies to make some of the points that I'm making. Maybe I'll be able to pick up right where I left off. I'm going to go back to the chat section, see if any more of you guys join in. I'm going to shut the video down, by the way. So I appreciate you all for joining me. By the way, it says, NATO says, howdy, Dorsey. Hope you're having a good night. Appreciate you. Ramula L says, Jews were okay, claiming. I read that already. They definitely hide in true history. Yes. Thank you. Well, peace out, guys. Thank you, everyone who've watched so far. Thank you for those who subscribe to my channel. Just so you know, public service announcement. Don't forget, if it's, I know it's been a minute since I've gone live over here. Don't forget, I have a backup channel. Subscribe to me over there. By the way, it should be linked to this channel. By the way, it's Dorsey's Resource Channel 2. Just type it in on YouTube. I have a backup channel. I put out some videos over there dealing with the 1099A. So if some of you guys that are studying that, I wanted to cover a topic tonight, something that protects you if you're still doing business as the legal fiction, certain contracts to dismantle, Real legends never die. They live in our hearts forever. You guys want to follow me on social media. Keep in mind, it should be in the description box after the video uploads. You can check my previous videos. I am on Instagram. That's my more liberal side. Parler is my more conservative side. I have a Twitter account. You guys want to follow me on there. I have my largest number of followers on my Twitter handle. Sometimes I'm active. I'll check in from every now and then. For the most part, appreciate you all for joining me once again. The marathon will continue. Until next time, Dorsey's Resource. I'm out. Deuces. Peace. Okay.